Welcome in to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I'm Austin. Find me on Twitter at RealBirdLawyer. I'm Austin. You can find me on Twitter at RealBirdLawyer. Here with me, as always, is my co-host Taylor at Taylor_Witt on Twitter. I'm fired up because it's week one. Football's back.
Let's do it, baby. There are a lot of fun shows that we get to do throughout the NFL season, and Super Bowl winning and playoff wins are great. This is like the next best thing.
Oh,
This
it's
is like
Christmas.
pre-week one is as hype as we can get, and yeah, dude, I'm ready to watch some ball.
Speaking of hype, our listener leagues are kicking off. I'm actually drafting my work team right now. So,
Yeah,
if you hear a little pause, we'll edit it out
a
in
little
post.
space
But
off.
if there's any clunky editing, which there won't be
Mhm.
because Taylor
Mhm.
is an amazing editor and he always does
Mhm.
an incredible job stitching the podcast together. That's why. It's because I'm drafting right now. And we had a couple of drafts this week in our listener leagues. We've got one coming up tomorrow night for our Cutthroat League. It's going to be amazing. I know you were in on the redraft league. I popped into that Discord call for a little bit. Some good
Yep.
looking squads out there.
Yeah, it's always fun to play fantasy with the people that are kind enough to spend some of their time and energy to listen to us ramble on about football. So appreciate all of you for reaching out, being enthusiastic, playing fantasy with us. Really excited for the listener league, both the redraft and dynasty and cutthroat. All three of them should be a lot of fun. We're gonna obviously keep everyone appraised on how that goes throughout the year. Appraised. I think it's apprised.
A prize. And
Yeah,
appraised would be like if you're determining the
appraisal.
value of
Yeah.
something. Yeah,
We're going to keep
exactly.
everybody both appraised and apprised on the situation, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
My appraisal of these leagues is that they are top notch and top dollar, and they're amazing. And in fact, we were having a conversation off the air before we jumped on to record about how it's hard to get a fantasy league full of studs of people
Yeah.
who are engaged and know ball and know fantasy, and if they don't know fantasy, are interested in learning about it and being good at
Mhm.
it and want to win. It's hard to find 10 or 12 or 14 people to fill out a league. And we are very fortunate to have three leagues filled with amazing listeners who are locked in and no ball, which is not a predictor of fantasy football success, but
Not at
it
all.
does at least make it enjoyable and fun to play and hang out. And so we're excited to get those kicked off. We're brought to you as always by Fansided. Check out their other great content. Obviously, Fansided rolling out all kinds of great stuff with the season kicking off this Thursday. It is Tuesday night. We've got a great show for you guys. We've got news. We're previewing week one, baby. It's here. Ravens at Chiefs. And then we kind of slipped this under the radar, but we haven't done season predictions yet. So we are going to go through the schedule. We are going to pick each of those games, and then we'll do our little season predictions here at the end. But first, well, let's kick it off. We've got a regular season game to preview, which means it's time to take a look first in the news at the injury report. Now, the Chiefs and the Ravens coming into this game, week one of the regular season. Uh, when you look at the injury report, it looks like there is a wide gulf between these two teams in terms of their health. The Chiefs have 9 players on the injury report. The Ravens have 2, but the eight of the 9 players on the Chiefs injury report were full participants Monday and full participants Tuesday. That's Nazeeh Johnson, Chris Jones, Joshua Williams, Nick Bolton, Wanya Morris, Derek Nottie, Joe Tooney, and James Winchester. All of those players are full participants. They are going to be full go. The one player who is not practicing and will not play this week that is on the active 53-man roster is Hollywood Brown. He obviously suffered that sternoclavicular injury in the preseason opener, and it sounds like he's getting close-ish. Like he hasn't definitively been ruled out for week 2. He's
Yeah.
going to be out for week 1. We'll kind of see where it goes from there, but it sounds like he's on a pretty similar timetable to Tyreek Hill, who I think was out essentially 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, and Andy commented that his progress has been incredible. So Andy doesn't usually flower up stuff like that. We take it day by day. We see how it's going. We'll let you know. But I mean, he said his progress has been great, which to me indicates that it really has. And it's a bummer for Hollywood because he's a former Raven. He's a Raven draft pick, and he's
Right,
a guy
right,
that
right.
would have wanted to get out there and mix it up against his old squad, and had some struggles in Arizona with both his health and his quarterback health. So like, I don't know. I'm sure he's very much looking forward to his season debut whenever that comes. Hopefully it's week 2 against the Bengals, but everyone else full go. Like you said, it's these are guys that picked up nicks and bruises and stuff throughout camp, and they're still listed here. But it doesn't seem like it's anything that is any long-term considerations other than we got to make sure Hollywood gets back on the field.
I want to give you a quick update on my draft. I just drafted Xavier Worthy with the 99th pick. I took a little bit of a risk with my last pick. I didn't reach for him, and I ended up getting him anyway. This league is going to be my bitch. Let's talk about an addition that the Chiefs made and a former AFC West and frankly AFC rival. Samaje Perine signs with the Chiefs after he was somewhat surprisingly cut by the Broncos. I don't know what the Broncos are doing. I can update you, as a someone who lives in Colorado, like the Sean Payton thing. I think people are starting to get very apprehensive of the Sean Payton thing. They
Sure.
cut Tim Patrick, who, regardless of what you think about his contributions on the football field, he's been tragically season-ending injured the last two seasons. He reworked his contract to reduce his cap hit to have a better chance of sticking on the roster. He played pretty well in the preseason, and the Broncos have one of the worst wide receiving cores in the NFL. They cut him, and then they turned around and cut Samaje Perine, who, I mean, this is a guy that had 450 receiving yards last year, 693 yards from scrimmage. I mean,
Mhm.
and for a bad Broncos team, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he averaged 4.5 yards a pop, 9.5 yard or little over 9 yards per reception, which for a running back, catching stuff out of the backfield is exceptional. A really strong player on screens last year. I mean, this is a guy who obviously has had his moments against the Chiefs, both as a Bronco last season and as a Bengal a couple of years ago.
Right.
Andy even mentioned in his opening presser, the screen that he absolutely bulldozed us on a couple years ago in the playoffs. I mean, I really like this addition. Now he is a little bit long in the tooth for a running back. I mean, this is a guy who is about to turn 29, but this is a guy that only has 454 carries in his career. So even though he's an older guy, there's not a whole lot of tread on the tires. And this is a guy that can really contribute in the passing game and really provides a nice complement, I think, to Pacheco and Carson Steele.
I think he was a good, solid target by a lot of people for a guy that could come in and either fill out a Jerick McKinnon role or at least do some of the pass pro stuff that McKinnon could do. And, he's definitely got some pop. Would it surprise you? You might already know this, but that he owns the NCAA single game rushing record, 427 yards in 2014, who he broke the record that was set the previous week by Melvin Gordon. Melvin
Hmm,
Gordon set the single
sure.
game record, and then 1 week later, Samaje Perine broke it. So, yeah, he's got a lot of potential for a nothing signing for something that barely cost the Chiefs anything that could bring him in and I mean I think he's going to make some big plays. I think he's going to be a contributor on offense certainly. And boy, the difference in that running back room between what it was and now having Carson Steele and Samaje Perine behind Isaiah Pacheco is crazy. Just the level of confidence I have when all three of them are going to touch the ball. I feel like that's such a you know, it's a luxury that we didn't have last year between Clyde and all the, I mean, we'll talk about him, but like, it's just nice to have some playmakers back there.
Yeah, let's talk about Clyde because he went to the non-football injury list. He's going to miss at least the first 4 games of the season. This is related to, of course, the complications that he's suffering from PTSD relating to that violent incident that he was involved in a couple of years ago. And we've said this over and over. Obviously, we're hoping that everything goes well with his mental health and his recovery. The Chiefs do not have to pay him while he's on the non-football injury list, but they are paying him. They're keeping him on the payroll, and he's not getting paid a whole lot. They obviously brought him back on a close to a league minimum deal. Still a stand-up move by the Clarks to keep him on the payroll, and I know Clark is hoping to improve that F minus grade that he got in the NFLPA report card for ownership last year. I'm sure that's why he's doing
Sure.
it and not because
Has
he's a
to be.
stand-up guy. But yeah, I mean, in football terms, I think Samaje Perine for Clyde Edwards-Helaire is an absolute upgrade for the Chiefs. And I feel unequivocally that the Chiefs are a better football team with Samaje Perine on the field than they are with Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the field.
Yep. Yep. I completely agree. They're, the ceiling raises on the offense and, that's what you're going for at this stage.
let's talk about this game. I mean, it's crazy. Like, there's not a this is the season. We're here. That's the news. We talked about the injuries. We talked about the signings. The game is here. It's week
Hmm.
one. It's Thursday night. It's Ravens at Chiefs. And this one obviously has a ton of juice, a ton of pop, because it's the AFC Championship game rematch from 1 year ago. The Ravens were the number one seed. We'll talk about some of the things that they were good at when we get into the X's and O's in this game. But not only do you have a rematch of the last game that was played in the American Football Conference in January, but you also have a week one matchup between what should be two of the best teams in the AFC. And it's always so interesting to see how teams come out of the gate week one. There's so much turnover. We'll talk about some of that again when we get into the X's and O's, but these are not the same teams that faced off in January. A lot of the main characters are the same, but a lot of the supporting characters have changed, and you just you just don't know what's going to happen week one of a football season. It's a completely
No,
new beast. And here you have two teams playing what could be a hugely consequential game in terms of, I mean, this will be the only time these teams play in the regular season. They're not division rivals, so they only play once. And the head-to-head is the tiebreaker. If they finish with the same record, the team that wins this game will have the higher seed in the AFC playoffs. So a lot at stake for a Thursday night week one opener.
yeah, this is about as good as it could possibly get. You've got there are three people that have won two MVPs in the last 6 years, and two of them are playing in this game. Mahomes and Lamar are four of the last six winners, with Rodgers winning in 20 and 21. So you've got stars, galore on the quarterback side. I mean, Lamar is the most decorated non-Mahomes quarterback in football with
He
the two
is.
MVPs.
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
and he's got dynamic running style, and like, I mean, he passes the eye test too. Now there are some things to be said about his playoff struggles and some other things, but and maybe health, because he hasn't finished some years. But no one's denying that September Lamar has been unbelievable in his career, and that's the version that is coming into Arrowhead. So like you said, it's a big matchup, not only for the teams. I mean, there's no chance that this game doesn't have a significant AFC factor in the playoff race. There's no chance. Both these teams are going to be good. Both these teams are going to be in the race. Whether it's the difference between like the two and the three, or
And I
possibly
mean,
the
I think we can say, quarterback health permitting, these are both playoff teams. Like, I just don't
correct
see
already. Yes,
really any
they
scenario where either of
no
these teams misses the playoffs.
no. You're exactly right. And so and you've also got the big time rematch. I mean, they've done these week one Super Bowl defending champ things for a while now, right? Like, since I think 14 was maybe the first time where they anointed the Super Bowl winner as the start of the league year. But I don't remember. I could have looked this up, but the rematch being an AFC or NFC championship rematch. I mean, it's been, I know for sure the Chiefs played both at New England, which wasn't a playoff rematch, or it wasn't a championship rematch, and then the Texans, which was a playoff rematch but not a championship
Right.
rematch
Right.
in 20, and then the Lions, of course, not a rematch at all, and 20 the Bucks started off against not the Chiefs and not
Right.
anyway. Point being,
And
big
not the
time,
Packers. They played the
not the
Packers in that
Packers.
championship game.
Right,
Right.
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 So it's a big time deal to see a the second to last game that played on the NFL season last year as the first game of this season. It's really fun and cool. I'm glad it matched up this way. I can't imagine more at stake going into Thursday night.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Let's dive into this because there's a lot to talk about with this game. Aside from the playoff implications, the pageantry, the banner raising, Chiefsaholic sentencing hearing on Thursday. He's asking for 10. Prosecutors are asking for 20. I hope they throw the book at him and lock him away forever, because the Chiefs have never not won the Super Bowl since he went to jail. So,
Good
it
point.
is what it is. But let's talk about the X's and O's in this game. A lot to get to. Let's start with the Chiefs. When the Chiefs have the ball, we always go offense first because, I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes, you got Travis Kelce, you got Andy Reid. Like, yeah, the defense is cool and all, but like, and I feel like that's where we have to kind of start here. The Chiefs finish eighth in offensive DVOA last year, which for a normal football team is like totally respectable. You're top
Yeah,
10
pretty
in
good
offensive
actually.
efficiency. That's pretty good. Like you're one of the eighth best offenses in the NFL. There's 32 NFL teams. You do the math. That's top 25%, top quarter of the league. That's really good. That's Elite Eight, baby. There's no question though that this was the worst offense of the Mahomes era. And I mean, for a number of reasons, right? You had the inconsistent, I guess we could just call it bad wide receiver play. Like the wide receivers weren't good, the pass catchers weren't good. You had the offensive tackles being penalized every other play. And then you had a relatively weak run game on top of all of that, to name a few. It's crazy that this team was top 10 in offense
Yes.
last year, but we've been talking about it. Let's talk about it in the context of an actual NFL football game. There's optimism in each of these categories. We got to start with the wide receivers. Unfortunately, Hollywood's not going to play this week, but this is essentially the same wide receiver room as last year with Xavier Worthy, the fastest man in NFL combine history, who has
Pretty
looked
good.
incredible in the preseason, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who's the Chiefs wide receiver one 2 years ago. And I get that he might not be the same guy, but who knows? He might be. This is not the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, New England Patriots that we're dealing with
No.
here. They are not infallible. They can make mistakes, and it sounds like he's having good practices. Rashee Rice should be at least as good as he was at the end of last year, and he was a beast. He was an animal in the postseason. He's looked great in the preseason. I know you have pointed this out a couple of times. Just he looks better. Let's be
A lot
honest.
better.
And he's not a wide receiver, but like Jared Wiley looks like a dude. I mean, I get you can't expect too much from a rookie tight end, but like he looks like a dude.
Yeah, he absolutely looks like a dude. And, gone are two of the names that are as important as the names that are coming back. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Tony and Kadarius Tony are
Sure, right.
just as important to not be in this game as the guys that you
Addition by
mentioned that are in
subtraction.
the game. I mean, I don't like to clown on the guys that are no longer here. I'm glad that they contributed to a Super Bowl winning team, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. But like, let's be honest, when you're breaking this team down on paper, you would rather see Juju Smith-Schuster and Xavier Worthy running routes than those two clowns. So like that part is good. The vibes on the Juju signing have all been really good, from Andy to Pat to just the way that the team has re-embraced a guy that won a Super Bowl and was a big contributor for a Super Bowl 2 years ago. And then, yeah, got kind of thrown to the wolves a little bit. He went over to New England and had, Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi throwing him balls or whoever, and just wasn't really. It's not the same in New England now as it was a couple years ago. We all know that. And as you said, they're definitely not the, like, if New England cuts him, he's trash. You remember that narrative
Yeah,
from
sure, of
forever
course.
ago that
Yeah.
was, if Bill
They're
Belichick
always
cuts
going
a
to be a
guy.
year early on a
Yes.
guy. Yeah,
Yes,
and
exactly.
not a
That's
year late.
not
They're
the
not going to pay
case.
anybody. Right. Right.
That's not the case anymore. Bill Belichick can't scout talent anymore. He's washed, and he still knows defense. He still knows how to scheme them up and stuff. But talent evaluation has not been a thing in New England for a while now. And I just think that even if Juju is like he's your wide receiver 4 or 5 or whatever, like that's still much improved over what it was last year. And excuse me. And I think that Xavier Worthy presents the biggest kind of,
Mm.
tantalizing possibility of what this offense could be different about last year. Like he's another gear. He's another gear that the Chiefs haven't had since Tyreek, really, as far as the speed goes. And if the Chiefs walk out there on Thursday and they take the top off this defense a couple times, like, I mean, you can imagine it. You can feel it. You can feel
I
it in
can
your
feel it.
bones, and I'm feeling it in my bones.
Yeah.
It's
You know it.
it could be a lot of fun.
It could be a lot of fun. And the Ravens first round pick, Nate Wiggins, has been getting a lot of hype because he's extremely fast. He's one of the fastest cornerbacks ever. And I know they were giving him some flowers for running step for step with the now thrice retired Justin, or not Justin, the other Ross.
John?
John Ross, the thrice retired John Ross in the preseason. Nate Wiggins is not seeing speed like Xavier Worthy's speed. That's going to be a fun matchup in this first game. Let's talk about the tackles really quick. Jawan Taylor, 22 penalties last season, but just 4 in the playoffs, and only one of those was a false start. I mean, like they were calling him for false starts left and right the first month of the season. By the end of the year, it seemed like he had either figured something out or the refs had decided like, oh, maybe we were wrong about this.
Maybe this
Maybe
is
we should go.
shitty product.
Yeah, maybe we should go back to calling the game the way that we've called it for the last 15
Yeah.
years. And maybe the people clowning on us for calling Juwan Taylor for false starts and not calling Lane Johnson for false starts, every play. Maybe we're the ones who are wrong about this. Uh he did have 4 penalties, but only one of those is the false start. So hopefully the procedural penalties are in the past. And a tackle, I mean, any offensive lineman, you know, continuity is important. And it was his
Yeah.
last year in the system last year, first time playing with Patrick Mahomes, first time playing with Trey Smith. Now you have continuity at 4 out of the 5 offensive line spots. The guy on the left, Kingsley Suamataia, obviously a rookie, obviously unproven. You're throwing him out there to protect Patrick Mahomes' blind side, but we've seen the upside with this guy.
Yeah.
This is a guy who a lot of people would have been happy with at 32 if the Chiefs had stayed put, a first round talent at left tackle. He's looked great in the preseason. There's going to be some ups and downs with this guys, but the upside, we talked about this with Randy last week. I mean, this guy's got more upside than any Chiefs tackle since maybe one peak season of Eric Fisher. And before
Sure.
that, you'd have to go back to like, I don't know, Willie Roaf. Like I'm
Yeah.
not saying he's going to
Maybe.
be Willie Roaf, but I'm talking
Right.
about like if you go back through the history of Chiefs left tackles, this guy's got more ability than any guy that's played that position for the Chiefs in 15 years.
Well, and look, here's the other deal is that left tackle is really important if your quarterback is blind, does have a
Sure,
blind
right.
side.
Yeah, right.
Patrick does not have a blind side.
Correct.
He knows when the rushes are coming. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. And he, he talked about, I believe in the Chris Sims interview, which was fantastic that he did a couple days ago, about how much he's evolved in recognizing coverages. He says he'll watch other NFL quarterbacks, and when they get smoked by a blitz, he laughed and he said, "Yeah, I would have seen that coming from a mile away. I know when I'm hot. I know when to get rid of it." So like, the left tackle, the blind side of a right-handed quarterback becomes a lot less like key. Now, it's great if he's good, obviously, but like it becomes a lot less like if this guy sucks, the team is cooked. I mean, they've been getting by with Orlando Brown and Donovan Smith and all these guys over the last couple of years, and they're fine players. Orlando Brown, maybe not, but
Sure.
like they don't need a superstar left tackle. If they were going from Trent Williams last year to a rookie left tackle, if he had retired and they were like, oh my God, how are we going to fill that void? I get it. Like I get that would be big shoes to fill, but like this is not big shoes to fill at left tackle. Kingsley just needs to go out there and be young and hungry and big like he is and just go out there and push people around. And I think he can do that.
I mean, I think the way that I would frame what you're saying is the Chiefs don't need an elite left tackle,
No.
but if they get an elite left
Yeah.
tackle,
Now
I
what?
mean, they're
Yeah,
gonna
right.
use it. They're gonna
Yeah.
use it. They'll
Yeah.
find a way to take advantage of that. So if
Uh-huh.
he turns out to be anything more than serviceable, that's going to be a huge bonus. And I'm sure that Andy Reid, having seen the way Kingsley moves in space, I'm sure that he has visions in his head for what that's going to look like in week 18, as the Chiefs are rolling into the playoffs in January and February, if he is what we think he can be. And if he's not, again, like the Chiefs have been navigating average or below average left tackle play for like every season of Patrick Mahomes' career,
Yeah.
except maybe 2019 when Fisher was, kind of in that top 10, maybe right around 8
Yeah,
to
they
10.
had Fisher and Schwartz when they went in 19, and that was fun. And
Yeah,
other than
it was
that,
great.
it's been pretty rough at the tackle spot.
We touched on this already, but then the last one I wanted to talk about was the run game. And of course, that starts with the offensive line, and you still have the best interior offensive line in the NFL with Tooney, Creed, and then Trey Smith at right guard. But you also have quite a bit of turnover in the running back room. We've already talked about P. Ryan and what he brings to the table. You also have Pacheco, of course, leading the room. And then you got Carson Steele making his NFL debut. And I think it'll be really interesting to see. I'm really curious to see what the breakdown is in terms of the workload, because we know that Pacheco always wants the ball, and we know that the Chiefs are comfortable feeding him. But they also have two guys that, I mean, Perine's, while he is, at least the last couple of seasons, has been kind of, pigeonholed into more of a a pass specialist, third down
Yeah,
back.
receiving down. Yep.
He's not a small guy. I mean, he's listed at 5'10", 236.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
236 at 5'10, that's a bowling ball.
He's coming right
It's
at you.
it's not quite Jerome Bettis level, but like he's got some girth to him. And all three of these guys have some girth to him. And it's going to be really interesting to see. It's just it's not thunder and lightning, it's just thunder and thunder and thunder. And
Thunder
I'm
and thunder. That's
I'm
great.
really excited to see what the Chiefs do.
Yeah. I think if you were to analyze like some of the frustrations, at least from a fan perspective of the Chiefs offense over the last several years, obviously short yardage running has been a huge, huge problem. And they try to get too cute. You've got Patrick Mahomes, so you kind of feel, I get it from an offensive play caller perspective, like, all right, every time I hand the ball off to a running back and he gets stuffed instead of giving it to 15, I probably made a mistake. Like in hindsight, your hindsight's definitely 2020 there. But
Right.
if you've got guys like, especially the man of steel himself, Carson Steele, if you've got a brick shit house back there as a fullback / running back 2 or whatever they're going to use him as, like, let's use him. Let's line him up in short yardage situations and hand the ball off to him. And look, Pacheco is a fine short yardage running back. He's done good work, especially in the playoffs, especially over the last. When the runs matter, typically Pacheco's going to punch it in, but you do like to see a little bit more beef out of the running back in those situations. You just want a little bit more man mass, and Steele definitely brings that. And as you said, Perine's certainly no small guy by any means. So all three of these guys, I feel pretty comfortable if it's third and goal at the 1 and
Yeah.
you told me you were going to give it to any of them, I'm like, let's go. Let's do it. Like that's fine. And that's not a situation that the Chiefs have had, especially not with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and especially just not over the last several seasons. So I do think the run game doesn't need to carry the ball 40 times a game. We know that. Got Patrick Mahomes. You want to throw the rock. You just need the runs to pick up when they matter, when they're short yardage and the Chiefs decide to hand the ball off. And we've seen some home run ability out of Pacheco for sure. I mean, I'm especially thinking that Jets game, but like it's not like you couldn't rip off an 80-yard run with him if opportunity presents itself. But I definitely like the idea of being able to just line them up, big boy ball them, like you said, best interior line in the league. You got Sua Mataia and Juwan Taylor on the outside. Like let's just try and pick up a yard the hard way.
Let's go. Let's talk about the Ravens defense here because this is half of the units that are going to be on the field when the Chiefs have the ball. The less interesting, less cool, less exciting half.
Yeah.
But this was obviously the number 1 defense in the NFL last year, number 1 in defensive DVOA, one of the best defenses ever by defensive efficiency metrics, and especially what they were able to do against elite offenses last year. They absolutely manhandled the Lions. They absolutely manhandled the 49ers. I mean, a lot of teams from that Shanahan tree that dominate the NFL on a week-to-week basis ran into a buzzsaw with this Ravens defense, and they have maybe the best safety in the sport in Kyle Hamilton. You've got a lot of continuity on the back end personnel wise at linebacker. You've got Roquan Smith, and then they have a lot of continuity in the defensive back room and in the safety spots. But there is a significant personnel change, and it's not on the field, but at defensive coordinator. Mike Macdonald is gone. He's in Seattle coaching the Seahawks. And in his place is 32-year-old Zach Orr, who is a former UDFA linebacker. He's been coaching with the Ravens since 2017, but he has never called plays at any level. At any level. I looked this up. No level. He's never called plays, ever. So week 1, September, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid against an NFL defensive coordinator making his NFL debut. Who you got?
His coaching debut. I mean, it's so interesting because the NFL, is chock full of dudes, and the Ravens are no exception. They've got dudes all over that defense, and even if the calls aren't maybe necessarily perfect, a lot of times the athletes can make up for it. You still read the play, make a play, go make a big pick or whatever, but you've also got emotion at play in this game, and you've got the Ravens that are pissed. They were hurt. They had their season ended by the Chiefs at home just short 7 months ago, and I just wonder if if having a rookie, for lack of a better term, defensive coordinator
That's what he
is
is.
not that is what he is. And I don't think that's the right environment for him to make his debut. I don't think that's a spot where the guys need leadership and they need calm and they need experience. I mean, obviously I've never been anywhere close to what these guys are doing, but just from like a human element, just like a perspective of like, okay, they clearly are going to be raw and fired up and using their emotions, but like I would much rather prefer a guy like, and not even as good as him, but like Steve Spagnuolo as far as experience goes, to be able to kind of right the ship, settle guys down, put them in the right spot, even if they're not thinking clearly, because these guys are going to be out there for blood, and the Chiefs can use that to their advantage. I love the matchup for the Chiefs offense.
Me too. And it has to be said again, this guy's 32 years old. I mean, we're talking about somebody that's younger than you and me. And
By quite a bit.
he's calling a defense against Patrick Mahomes in his first NFL game as a defensive coordinator. Now
He's
he's
4 years older than Patrick Mahomes.
yeah, exactly. He's played in the league, but it should be pointed out that he wasn't even
Good.
I mean, he wasn't really even their second choice because Anthony Weaver, who was the assistant head coach and the defensive line coach for the Ravens, he ended up going to Miami to be the defensive coordinator there. So they got the number one guy, Mike McDonald, poached. They got the number two guy, Anthony Weaver, poached. This is at best the number three guy in the organization when it comes to running the defense. And sure, he's been in the room, he's been around, he knows how the system is supposed to play and how it's supposed to be called. But we see this all the time in the NFL. Just because you know the playbook doesn't mean you know what the right play is to call at the right moment. And it is especially difficult when you are trying to come up with the perfect play call against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in week one when they've had an entire offseason to draw up new plays and prepare, and they got a new toy in the fastest player ever in the history of the NFL. I I think this might be underratedly like the biggest mismatch in this game.
Yeah, and I mean it kind of part of it depends on how much of a step forward the Chiefs offense has actually taken versus how much we hope it's taken. Like,
Sure.
we definitely saw last year for the majority of the year the Chiefs offense heavily struggle. And yes, we all blamed the wide receivers. That was the easy blame. It was obvious when they dropped passes, but there were some underlying issues and there were some execution problems along the whole offense, Mahomes included. And, it wasn't just, okay, let's get rid of Kadarius Toney and call it a day. But I do think that, if we're right, and if these changes that they've made both schematically and sometimes it's just about like, okay, now that we've got these new guys in, let's rethink the offense. And it doesn't necessarily mean the new guys are the reason that the offense is going to succeed, but it's like, okay, we've got now like a fresh outlook on offense in the NFL in 2024 and we can try some different stuff and can't go any worse than it did last year. So like, I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic about the Chiefs offense, and I think that when they match up against this defense, I mean, don't be surprised if they light them up. Absolutely. Like I think that's well within the 17-10 stuff from last year. Like if that happened again here, no one would say like they never saw it coming, but like definitely don't be surprised if the Chiefs drop 30 plus.
Yeah. What is the biggest question mark for you in this matchup coming into week one on the offensive side of the ball for the Chiefs?
In the Chiefs offense versus the Ravens defense, I mean, with Hollywood being out, you still kind of, you've got Rashee Rice and then some unprovens. Juju and Justin Watson and all those, the guys after and Sky Moore and all they're fine. It's whatever. But like I want to make sure that the Chiefs have enough playmakers on offense. I want to make sure that when Xavier Worthy gets a deep ball, that he catches it and that he runs really fast and scores a touchdown. Like that, the stuff that we imagine is going to happen. I want to see it happen. And that's kind of my big question. I have no question marks about line play calling, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I have no questions about him. I think a lot of people are praying for his downfall from, his kind of his less than 1,000-yard season last year. And then he showed in the playoffs, like, hold my dick. Like it didn't matter. And so I don't have any questions about.
That's why he's the GOAT.
That's why he's the GOAT. And that's why they'll use him and he'll make big plays and all that stuff. And I mean, he dusted Kyle Hamilton in the last matchup. So I'm not worried about the Ravens being able to take him off the board or whatever. I think really it's the wide receivers, and can the non-Rashee Rice wide receivers make the leap that we hope that they've made this offseason.
Yeah, I think that's for me. I was going to go along a similar lines. I mean, for me, I just want to see, can the Chiefs get the deep passing game back for the first time since Tyreek was gone? And I think like I this is not the ideal spot to see it because the Ravens have a killer secondary. They love to keep the ball in front of them. I mean, you've got Kyle Hamilton on the back end, and the Chiefs aren't playing at full strength. You know, Hollywood is one of the two burners on the outside, or even, I mean, he can play all over the field that could really open this passing attack up deep. But if it's kind of one of those things where, you know, it's like the scene where Neo is doing the jump, right? It's like nobody ever makes it the first time. He's like, okay, but what if he does? Like, if the Chiefs go out and
Yeah.
they drop a couple of 60-yard bombs on the Ravens in week one,
Yeah.
like, I mean, cancel the
All
rest of the
bets are
season
off.
because like
Yep.
we are never going to lose a game again.
That's
Uh,
right.
I can kind of guess where you're likely to go with this one, but what are you most excited to see Chiefs on the offensive side of the ball?
Patrick LaVon Mahomes the second. I
Mhm.
mean, it doesn't get better than him in sports. He's the most exciting player in sports. He's the most just electric. Can't believe he's ours. Everything that we've told, all the you know thousands of hours we've spent talking and thinking about Patrick Mahomes. Like, I can't wait to watch him play more football. That matters. He's the best. He's the coolest, and that's what I'm most excited about.
We talk about this every year at this time when we're previewing week one, but we are about to witness history in the making.
That's
You
right.
never know what's going to happen. You never know what you're going to see when Patrick Mahomes steps onto an NFL football field in a game that matters. We get to see it on Thursday night. It's going to be amazing. We do have to talk about the other side of the ball. So let's talk about when the Ravens have the ball. They were fourth in offensive DVOA last year. We obviously just turned the clock back and recapped that AFC Championship game a few weeks ago. So you can check that out if you are interested in that. The next great American dynasty, recapping that game. They return a bunch of key players: Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, of course, Lamar Jackson. Odell Beckham Jr. is gone, but was he ever really there to begin with? I don't know. Their big addition was 30-year-old Derrick Henry. And so I guess the question that we will see answered perhaps on Thursday night is, will a 30-year-old running back transform an NFL offense in the year 2024? I don't know.
It's I think if the Chiefs hadn't had performed as well as they have over the years against Derrick Henry, I would be a little bit more scared of him. Like, if I were I think it's the Texans. Isn't the Texans the team that he's had like 200 yards and three
Oh
touchdowns
yeah,
like every single time he's ever played
sure.
them? Like there are some matchups where he's just eating people alive and spit them out, and the Chiefs isn't one of them. So I mean, look, I do think that he's the most physically imposing back in the NFL. I mean, hard to argue. He's gigantic
Yeah,
and
right.
extremely fast. He's one of the most gifted athletes I've ever watched. They play sports. Like, just the size and speed combo is not something that you see all that often in his. So I mean, I have utmost respect for what he's capable of doing, but I also at the same time have watched Steve Spagnuolo prepare for Derrick Henry and do quite well. And so I mean, we'll see if he impacts the season, like you're saying about 30-year-old running backs, but I don't really see it happening too much in this game.
You know, it's interesting. If you look at his career against the Chiefs, the game that everybody remembers is the AFC Championship game. And in that game where the Chiefs really needed to win that game, you know, Super Bowl on the line, 19 carries for 69 yards, no touchdowns, an iconic Frank Clark interview in the post game.
Yeah.
He's had some big games against us, like, but it's weird because they just aren't in games that really matter. Like, he's had a game where he went 23 for 188 and two against us
Mhm.
in 2018 or 2019, I think it was. It was in the Spags era. Um, and he obviously had that monster playoff game against the Chiefs in the Marcus Mariota self touchdown pass game
Yeah.
in the 2017 season, 23 carries for 155 and one, and ended, you know, the storied career of one of the greatest cornerbacks of our generation in Darrell Revis, just running him over and running him down into the grave, an NFL Hall of Famer. But you know, I looked today at the history of 30-plus-year-old running backs, and it is interesting. I mean, obviously, it's week one. You know, the Derrick Henry we see in January, that might be a completely different animal. We may not see a Derrick Henry in January because it's hard for these guys to stand up to the rigors of an NFL season. Obviously, the older you get and the physical nature of his game being what it is. But there have only been 6 players since 2015 to have rushed for over 1,000 yards at age 30 or over. Now, there have been 50 running backs since the merger, or 50 running back seasons since the merger, to have put up 1,000-yard rushing seasons at age 30 or over. There have been some really great players to do it. Tiki Barber did it back-to-back years at 30 and 31 for the Giants, 1860 and then 1662 the next year.
That's
and then he retired. It is crazy. And obviously, Tiki Barber, an incredible player. Walter Payton did it 3 times. 3 times went over 1,400 yards after his 30th birthday. But these are, I mean, some of the greatest players of all time. And while Derrick Henry certainly looks that at times on the football field, I don't know if you can look at the balance of his career and say, this is a guy that was in the same tier as Tiki Barber and Walter Payton, right? So since 2015, there have only been 6 players to do this, 1,000-yard rushing season on the wrong side of 30. Adrian Peterson did it twice. Frank Gore did it once. LeGarrette Blount did it once. Mark Ingram did it once. And Raheem Mostert did it last year, your guy in fantasy football. So it's going to be interesting to see what we see in week 1. And this, to me, this is almost kind of like the Neo making the jump thing as well, right? Like if Derrick Henry goes off for 150 yards in week 1, whatever. But if the Chiefs shut down Derrick Henry in week 1, when he's the healthiest and fittest and the most ready for football that he's going to be all year, I mean, there's no reason why we don't know what kind of Derrick Henry we're going to see in January. I guarantee you he will be feeling worse than he does on Thursday night. So if the Chiefs are able to shut him down Thursday night, I feel really good about their chances of doing it in January.
Yeah, I completely agree. Also you have to remember he's running in an offense with Lamar Jackson. So
right.
If the Ravens are going to do some type of like read option and Lamar is going to run up and he's going to hold the ball in Derrick Henry's belly and he's going to look at the D end and try and figure out if Lamar is going to run or Derrick Henry is going to run, that's a good situation for the Ravens. That's a good 1 and 1A option on the run play. If that doesn't work, if they run that type of stuff and the Chiefs can sniff it out, and a Chiefs defense that, mind you, is much better against the pass than against the run. Like they're a pass defense, always have been, because that's the way you win NFL games, especially late in the year, is you stop passes, not runs. But if the
somebody should tell Roquan Smith that, because his plan
yes, he said make him
that.
one-dimensional. Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But like, if the Ravens cannot run on a Chiefs team with the makeup of the Chiefs defense the way it is, and with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, like, who are they going to run against and when? If they don't put up 150 whatever yards by Derrick Henry, that's going to be like shocking to me. So let him run. That's fine.
Let him run. And I guess we can talk about, speaking of Steve Spagnuolo and players that he owns. There's been some personnel turnover on the defensive side of the ball. Defense might be a little bit worse for the Chiefs on the balance this year. We'll see. On the other hand, the Chiefs still have Steve Spagnuolo, and Steve Spagnuolo absolutely owns Lamar Jackson. It's a shocking level of domination by Spags against Lamar. Regular season Lamar, okay, is 58-19 with a 98 passer rating, which is insane. Okay, it's extremely good. If Patrick Mahomes didn't exist, you'd be like, oh my God, how is it possible for a quarterback to have such numbers? 58-19 with a 98 passer rating, extremely good. Regular season Lamar versus Kansas City is 1-3 with a 78.9 passer rating, a 20-point drop off. And by the way, the one victory was only because Clyde fumbled the ball in range for the game-winning field goal. The Chiefs already had the ball in field goal range. They lost that game by, I think, 1 point, and they were in position. They were in position to kick the game winner with time expiring, and Clyde fumbled the ball. So he should be 0-4 against the Chiefs in the regular season with the 78.9 passer rating. Oh, and by the way, playoff Lamar. He's lucky this game is being played in September, because the only time he's faced us in the playoffs, he's 0-1 with the 75.5 passer rating. He's even worse.
Terrible
in the playoffs.
He looked really bad.
He looked worse than his numbers, and his numbers were awful. So, I mean, this is a game where Lamar has almost literally never had a good game against the Chiefs, which is crazy because this is a 2-time NFL MVP. You've already talked about his pedigree. I mean, this is a player who is being talked about as a future Hall of Famer, and rightfully so, because he's won 2 MVP awards. But this is a player that almost more than any other quarterback in the NFL, Steve Spagnuolo just absolutely dominates Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, part of that of course, is because Spags is the GOAT. And it
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
really, like that's not really on Lamar for the most part. But there is the combination of Lamar not doing well against the Chiefs, who are the team to beat in the NFL, and Lamar not doing well in the playoffs against other teams, any team. So like he falters when the seasons get longer and when they get later and when games start to matter more. Lamar doesn't show his best version of himself. And this is a big stage, like a playoff game. It's not going to be quite that big, but it's certainly opening night. Everyone's going to be watching. And the matchup against a guy like Spags on the defensive end with a secondary that has some dogs and with the linebacking group that this team has. I mean, I'm really licking my chops to see how Spags handles this, because I think we're in for another pretty successful night for the GOAT defensive coordinator.
It's going to be great. Biggest question mark for you in this matchup: Chiefs defense against the Ravens offense.
I think it's the Ravens passing game. I think it's, you know, I, I know what to expect out of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running the ball. We've seen that a lot, but like, I don't know if Zay Flowers and Nelson Aguilar and Isaiah Likely are Mark Andrews, but like, I don't know if that's enough weapons to pass the ball effectively against this stellar Chief secondary. And yeah, they lost L'Jarius Sneed, but they've obviously got Trent McDuffie and all the safeties and everybody that we've all broken down all summer. So my biggest question mark is, can Lamar and the passing offense move the ball in the Chiefs?
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask at this stage of Lamar Jackson's NFL career. What are you most excited to see on this side of the ball?
Honestly, Derrick Henry. I mean,
Sure, that's
he's
fair.
awesome, man. He's
He's a
so
great player.
imposing and impressive. And anytime he runs the ball and kicks it into his highest gear, it looks made up. It looks like a video game. Like it just looks like it's not how any other running back runs the ball. And I really like watching him play. The Titans have had the Chiefs number a couple times, and he's been part of that. But like in general, I don't really have any animosity towards him. I was pissed that Baltimore got him because I'm pretty sure it's going to work. So I mean, yeah, it's Derrick Henry running the ball for the Ravens.
For me, I'm excited to see the Chiefs secondary. Obviously, some new players out there, Jaden Hicks in particular, but I'm
Yeah.
interested to see how the cornerback rotation shakes out. And, this is not really a huge test for the Chiefs secondary, which is a funny thing to say about a matchup against a two-time NFL MVP quarterback, but that's not where their bread is buttered. But I am excited to see the Chiefs quarterbacks get their feet wet against a great offense where there isn't an overwhelming amount of skill player talent. And so, I mean, these
Yeah.
guys, I say get
Agreed.
their feet wet. These guys have all played in the league before, but just see if any of those DBs, the cornerbacks especially, can turn this into, I mean, the spot across from Trent McDuffie into something other than a revolving door, a rotation. And we know the Chiefs I mean, if the Chiefs find somebody that can play 100% of the snaps opposite
Yeah.
Trent McDuffie at a high level, they're going to stick with that guy. Like
Yep.
if they rotate
Yep.
a guy in and he has success and he proves it on the field, they've done it with all of these guys in the rotation before. Jalen Watson had a stint as the starter. Joshua Williams has had a stint as the starter. Najee Johnson supplanted both of those guys last
Mhm.
year in training camp before he got hurt, and it essentially kicked both of those guys to the curb. So all these guys have shown in spurts that they can be the guy, and the Chiefs have shown that whichever dude is the guy, that's going to be the guy that's playing most of the snaps. So that's what I'm excited to see. Let's
Ooh,
talk
ooh,
really quickly. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, if you had to bet on who gets the most CB2 snaps for the Chiefs in the 2024 season right now, who's your money on?
I think probably Joshua Williams,
Me
but
too. That was going to be my
I'm
answer.
I think that's my guess, but I'm really excited to see how it shakes out. And I'm excited to see the X factors in this game. Let's talk about special teams. Let's talk about two traditionally great special teams franchises. Now that seems like a weird thing to say, but
Sure.
you've got John Harbaugh, who obviously was a special teams coordinator for Andy Reid. His teams
Mhm.
are always really well coached on special teams, and they do some interesting things. Let's not forget that they had a really strong return game last year. They have Justin
Devin
Tucker.
Duvernay.
I mean, you've got two of the greatest kickers of all time, let's be honest, and two of the current best kickers in the league. This isn't just a legacy matchup. You still have Butker at the top I mean, at the very peak of his game, and Justin Tucker near the top of his game. I mean,
Sure.
he's still very good. He's probably great even. And we've got the new kickoff rules. So what are these squads going to have cooked up? I have heard some speculation that the NFL didn't go far enough with the touchback, moving it up, and that NFL teams who we know are conservative by their very nature are not going to be scared enough by the new touchback coming out to the 30 to
Hmm.
not just kick the ball in the end zone. And you have two kickers here who are very, very capable of doing that on every kickoff. But is that the direction that these teams want to go? And I think it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, week one, you want to talk about trendsetters. I guarantee you, every
Yes.
special teams coordinator in the league is going to be watching this game to see what these two teams are doing when they are kicking the ball.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You've got a double-edged sword here because on the one hand, everyone's watching you. Whatever you do is going to get put on tape and all that stuff. But on the other hand, no one's done the kickoff live in a game yet for that mattered. And
Right.
so the first couple times you go out there, like the first two or three kickoffs, if you've got something up your sleeve, like fucking, you might as well use it now before in week one you're watching Red Zone and 17 teams are doing cool stuff on kickoffs and everybody, like you might as well go out there on Thursday night and surprise somebody with something. And so that could be cool. The coverage is really interesting because of the kick, because if you just look at average, if they kick off all year and special teams coordinators are trying to figure out whether they want to do a touchback or not, and let's say the average starting field position is the 28 and a half when you kick it off or the 30 with a touchback, but the
Right.
28 and a half includes like four or five exceptionally long runs, maybe one for a
Right.
touchdown, some of them that end in the other opponent territory and stuff. Like, I think that extra yard and a half per drive is probably worth not allowing the opponent to house one on you. And so I just wonder what the calculus is. I wonder if they're going to look at it over the next couple weeks and say, yeah, maybe we can shave some yards off of the start, but if we're going to let them up every now and then, like, I'm not into that. And or on the other hand, maybe they kick off and can really, really stuff the other team. They never give up runbacks. They cause some fumbles. They cause some chaos. If you've got a great coverage unit, if you've got a really good special teams unit, then it might be to your benefit to just be kicking them off. And some of that is going to matter to the kickers, how well they can place them. Can they bounce them and get them into the end zone without going on the fly? Like, how hard is that XFL kickoff to actually perform as a kicker? All these things are so fascinating to me. I'm so glad that the NFL changed it up because the kickoff was so boring and so dumb back last year and the last couple years. And I just like that there's something new.
It's going to be fun. Let's pick this game, and this will be the way that we kick off our season predictions. We have not done this, and we normally do one of these when the schedule comes out. I think we kind of skipped it this year. We just hit the highlights, but we have the 17 game schedule in front of us, and we're going to pick each one of these games, get our official predictions on record. Give me your prediction for week one against the Ravens.
30-21 Kansas City. I
Are
think
you gonna
that
are you gonna do a score for every game?
I don't know. Do you think we should just pick wins and losses? Let's just do wins and losses.
Well,
Win Chiefs.
wins and losses would be easier. I'm gonna literally just be using a
Let's
random
do a
number generator
score
if
for
I
third for this one coming up
Sure. Yeah, that makes
because it's
sense.
it's weird. We're getting a feel for it, and we'll just do dubs and L's for the rest of it.
Okay. I'm gonna go with my gut here, and I don't want to pick the Chiefs to lose, but I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious, and I saw how the game went last year. You and I were in attendance for the banner
Yes.
ceremony. And I think the Chiefs are going to lose week one in a squeaker again. And we'll see how the season ends up. I'm going to go with 24-21 Ravens.
Okay. So that's our week one predictions. Fun stuff.
Week two, Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Arrowhead. Give me a dub in this game. I mean, I can't in good conscience pick the Chiefs to lose against the Bengals and go to 1-4 against Joe Burrow. We'll see if Jamar Chase is playing in this game. We'll see if Hollywood Brown is playing in this game. But I think as we sit here right now, I think the hatred that the Chiefs have for the Cincinnati Bengals is still very real. I don't think the Chiefs are satisfied with their victory the last time these teams faced off, or I mean, that was
Sure.
obviously over Jake Browning, but I mean,
Sure.
the last time these quarterbacks faced off in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, I think the Chiefs still really have a grudge against this team, and I think they'll beat the Bengals. And I think we're not predicting the score, but I think it'll be a
Yeah.
fairly comfortable win.
I agree with you that I think the Chiefs are going to start off, especially my universe. They beat the Ravens in week one, and
Sure.
they've got some momentum and some swag and all that fun stuff. And I just think that these Chiefs, this version, the 2024 Chiefs, are going to be about proving people that last year was the fluke. That it wasn't that they, I mean, the fluke was obviously the bad offense, not the winning of the Super Bowl. That last year, their struggles were not the regular version of the Chiefs. And I think they're going to come out and execute these first couple weeks. It's a hell of a way to start against Baltimore and Cincinnati. That is about as hard of a stretch as you could ask for in the NFL. And I think they're ready for it. And so I've got them as a dub as well.
And I mean, they lost the season opener. You can count on one hand the number of games the Chiefs have lost in September in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era. So
Sure, you can almost count on one hand the number of games the Chiefs have lost in the Patrick
it's
Mahomes era. So
it's a really good point. Week 3, the Chiefs are traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, an interesting team. We will pick our division winners after this too. I think I am going to pick Atlanta to win this division, but I'm not afraid of any team in the NFC South. This is still the worst division in football. I don't think that it's particularly close, and I think the Chiefs win this game.
yeah, it's Kirk Cousins in prime time, bud.
Oh
It's
yeah,
Sunday Night
yeah, it's
Football.
Sunday Night Football. Yeah, I should have led with that. I should have led with
Yeah,
that.
like I just don't see it. I think the Chiefs have got what it takes to beat the Falcons for sure.
Kirk Cousins in prime time. Let me just Google that record really fast here
It's not
because
good.
that is just absolutely preposterous. It's 12 and 20. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good at
And
all.
his performances, it's not just the win loss, it's
Right.
that he wilts. He's
Yeah.
not the Kirk Cousins that we see at noon. So yep, give me the Chiefs there on the road.
So you have a starting 3-0. I have a starting 2-1. Week 4, the Chiefs are traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Fighting Jim Harbaugh's. I mean, seeing both Harbaughs in the first month of the season is kind of fun and quirky, and obviously Jim is the weirder one by far, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Chargers do with that team. There's a lot of Ravens DNA on that. They obviously brought over Greg Roman to run that offense, and they don't have any wide receivers at all. So, like, even though it's Justin Herbert and Justin Herbert's a completely different quarterback than Lamar Jackson, I feel like the Chiefs are going to have a pretty good handle on how to take care of these guys. I think this will be a fairly comfortable win for the Chiefs.
I was looking at the matchup history here, and the Chiefs have won 5 in a row against the Chargers, but 8 or 11 in a row at the Chargers. They haven't lost on
Sure.
the road to the
At Los
Chargers.
Angeles slash
Yes,
San Diego.
since they were in San Diego.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's been a long time, and this is a matchup that favors the Chiefs in more ways than one. Mike Williams killed the Chiefs. He was always the guy
Yeah.
that whenever the Chiefs and Chargers these last couple years matched up, I mean, he would have big third downs, big touchdowns. He's gone. He's a Jet, and so nobody on that offense. Eckler's gone. Keenan Allen's gone. It's a new day in Los Angeles, and I just don't think they're ready to hang with the big boys. So I've got a dub there for the Chiefs as well.
Week 5, the week before the bye for the Chiefs. Chiefs are the early bye this year. The Chiefs are hosting the New Orleans Saints at home on Monday Night Football, which is a strange sentence to utter. Just an sort of an odd primetime matchup against an
Yeah, it
NFC
is.
team that, I mean, has always been just terrible on the road. I mean, even when the Drew Brees was the quarterback of the Saints, I mean, peak Drew
Yeah,
Brees. Like, this has never been a team that plays well away
dome
from the
merchants.
confines of the Superdome. They've always been dome merchants. And it's Derek Carr at Arrowhead. You kidding me? Get out of here. I think it still will be Derek Carr, by the way. The
Right.
Spencer Rattler hive is real. And even though he was like a 5th round pick, I think there's a real chance that he pushes Derek Carr for a starting job at some point this year. But week 5, it's almost certainly still going to be Derek Carr. Derek Carr in Arrowhead. It's early October. Wind's starting to get a little chilly. Dub.
I'm glad that this game exists. I really hope that Carl Cheffers is the head ref so
Sure.
that there can be some, car revenge. And I just I can't imagine a scenario where Derek Carr comes into Arrowhead in a packed house on Monday Night Football and comes out with the win. I don't care who is around him. I don't care about he's washed. Like you said, it might not be Derek Carr there. It might be Spencer Rattler. But in either case, the Saints are they've got some interesting players, I guess. I mean, Chris Olave and some guys like that, but certainly not anyone that I'm scared of. I think that's a dub. It's going to be nice to welcome the Honey Badger back in to Arrowhead, but
Sure. Yeah. That'll be
it'll
interesting.
be good vibes all night for the Chiefs. I'm pretty sure.
Colin Saunders, of course, will be there as well. You
That's
got
right.
some former Chiefs
Willie
on that
Gay.
team. Willie Gay, sure. It'll be a fun little reunion, but I think probably an easy win for the Chiefs. Week 6 is the bye, and then in week 7, coming out of the bye week, traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. Now, you made an observation on Twitter today that I would like you to share with the class, just about
Yes.
how many teams are gunning for. I mean, this is every year, but this year
Yeah.
seems especially. We've made a lot of enemies throughout the NFL. Is really the situation that we're dealing with.
So there are 17 games on the schedule, and the three division opponents are on there twice. So there are 14 opponents, unique opponents on the schedule. Of those 14 opponents, 12 of them, the last time they played the Chiefs, lost to the Chiefs. It is only the Broncos and the Raiders, who are a combined 3-22 against Patrick Mahomes, that are even coming into this season off of a win against the Chiefs. Of course, we all remember Christmas Day, and we remember the Broncos finally beating the streak in Denver. But this is every other opponent. You're bringing this up, of course, because it's San Francisco and because Baltimore's already been on this thing. Buffalo's coming up later, so the whole run last year, other than Miami, is on there in the playoffs. But every team, in fact, is coming off of a loss against the Chiefs the last time they
That's
played, except
crazy.
for those two AFC West teams. So just goes to show that this team wins all the damn time.
And of those 12 teams, I mean, 3 of those, their last loss to the Chiefs was in the playoffs. You
It
mentioned
was
it. The
their
Ravens,
last, yeah,
the Ravens,
their
the
end
Niners,
of
and
the
the
season
Bills.
last year. Yeah, exactly.
So Lamar Jackson, we didn't mention this in the game preview. We said this isn't a revenge game. Every game is a revenge game. That doesn't even begin
That's
to make
bullshit.
sense.
It doesn't.
But
No, it doesn't.
this is 1000% a revenge game. But at the same time, like it's not a revenge game because like you can't get revenge for losing the Super Bowl. The
Yeah,
only revenge for getting beat in the Super Bowl is
is
beating that
beating
team
them.
in the Super Bowl,
They
right?
had
Like
a revenge shot.
yeah,
That was their revenge game. That Super Bowl,
winning
and they
at
lost it.
home in week 7 is not getting revenge for losing the Super Bowl twice
No,
to the Chiefs in the last 5 years. This is a really interesting matchup for me. I could see the Chiefs losing this game, but and you know what? I'm going to give it to them. I'll give them a loss. I'm going to predict a loss for this game. I know you're going to predict a 17-0 season, and I love that for you.
shut
But
up.
I
Spoilers, bro. Look, I really liked what the Chiefs did when they went into San Francisco last time out.
sure 2 years ago.
44-23
Yeah.
2 years ago. Juju was nuts that game, but in general, they rose to the moment and they played a hell of a good San Francisco team that year. I mean, they've been good for basically the whole Mahomes era, but that was no different. And they're 4-0 against the Niners in the Mahomes era.
Right.
They've gotten them at Arrowhead, they've gotten them on in 2 neutral sites, and they've gotten them in San Francisco. I don't see why this is any different. I don't think Kyle Shanahan can hang with Andy Reid. I mean, I think this is a big time road win for the Chiefs, and I don't feel that that unconfident about it. I think they're going to do it.
Yeah, I like that. Another road game after this. They have 2 road games coming out of the bye
In the Bay Area.
and in the Bay Area, right?
Well,
Exactly. It'll be
Oakland. Okay, it's Vegas now, so Vegas isn't, I guess,
the
technically
former
the
Bay Area.
Area, but
They can
still
take a
pretty
little,
close.
they can drive the team bus around the Coliseum before they head on down to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. I'm going to be at this game. Very excited about that. This will be my first Chiefs game outside the friendly confines of Arrowhead Stadium. So that'll be a fun one. And it's obviously a much more hospitable environment for traveling fans than the Black Hole used to be in Oakland. I'm going to predict the Chiefs to win this game. I mean, the Chiefs have already won a Super Bowl in this stadium. They have never lost in this stadium. This
That's right,
is,
they never will.
and they never will. This is an easy dub.
That's an easy dub. The Raiders are not very good. They don't have a quarterback. They obviously lost Josh Jacobs. Devontae Adams might be traded by the time Week 8 comes around if things aren't going his way there. I mean, I see I see no good vibes for the Raiders this year. I know everybody was fired up about Antonio Pierce, and that was a cool story and everything, but I think they're going to peak with that Christmas Day win over the Chiefs, and I think they're going to dip pretty hard after that. So Chiefs with an easy dub.
We have another former rival on the schedule here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are traveling to Kansas City in Week 9 to play the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Another AFC South or NFC South Monday Night Football matchup, which is frankly bizarre. I mean, this is
Yes.
probably the worst division in football, and yet two of the four matchups here are going to be in prime time on Monday night. I mean, like true prime time, like real island games. The Buccaneers, I don't know, Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes. That's kind of fun just because of the history that they have going back to that infamous
Yeah.
Texas Tech Oklahoma game. But, he was one of the guys that after his rookie season was supposed to be one of the challengers, Patrick Mahomes, and it never panned out because it never does pan out because no one can challenge Patrick Mahomes. This game is no exception. Chiefs win.
I agree with you. The Bucks are interesting. They're fine. They kind of didn't really look like a playoff team when they were a playoff team last year. They've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and Baker has played probably above his expectation level since he signed there, and they just signed him to an extension, so he's going to be there for a little bit. And I don't, I don't think I'm, super. I don't think they're going to kick their ass by any means, but I don't really see the Bucks to have enough horses there to hang with the Chiefs, and especially by this point, the Chiefs. This is now we're talking November football, so like the Chiefs are starting to be the Chiefs. This is starting to become like they're figuring out their whatever deficiencies they had earlier. This is kind of when they get the ball rolling, honestly. And so, give me a home game against the Bucks on Monday Night Football, yes, please.
It's a good one because they then have another home game against the Denver Broncos, who somehow, some way, defeated the Chiefs the last time these two teams matched up, broke the 15-game winning streak. And the Chiefs this year get to host. I mean, they get a host and they have to go to Denver, whatever. It's fine. That happens every year. One game at home, one game away. But this time, the Chiefs are hosting the Broncos. They're coming to Arrowhead. Presumably, knock on wood, Patrick Mahomes is not going to have the flu in this game.
Right.
I really think,
Or break his knee.
yeah, sure, or break his knee, or any one of the horrible things that happens when the Chiefs play the Broncos. I mean, I think this is a win. I think it's a comfortable win. I think this game, Week 10, Steve Spagnuolo against Bo Nix. This is when Broncos fans are really going to start to be
Turn on him.
peeing down their leg. Like I literally can read you a tweet right now. I just was checking Twitter between takes here, and I can see Broncos fans on my feed, populating my feed right now, this very moment as we're recording this podcast, the Tuesday before the season starts, that are calling Bo Nix a franchise quarterback. He has not played a single snap in the NFL.
Oh no.
He is 24 and a half years old. I pointed this out a couple of weeks ago to another delusional Broncos fan who was comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes was 22 when he played in his first NFL game, not 24 and a half. Okay. He was also 22 when he started his first season as the Chiefs starter in his second NFL season. He had already been on an NFL roster for a year at that point, by the way. And oh, by the way, when Patrick Mahomes was 24 and a half years old, he was already celebrating his first Super Bowl win. All right. He wasn't taking his first snap in the NFL. The Chiefs are going to win this game. And I think this Week 10, I mean, Bo Nix, he may have a couple of good moments in there. It's not going to be in the season opener against Mike McDonald. Are you kidding me? Maybe one of the best defensive coordinators in the league in Seattle. It's not going to happen in Week 1. I guarantee you at some point in the first 6 weeks of the season, Bo Nix is going to have one game where Broncos fans say, oh my God, we found him. This is the franchise quarterback. This is the second coming of Drew Brees.
Yep.
This will be the game that turns the narrative around. And they will say, oh my God, we were wrong again. We've been fooled once again.
We've been
The
wrong
Broncos
for so
are going
long.
to get destroyed in this game. The Chiefs are going to start a new streak.
I love it. The Chiefs are going to continue a home winning streak against the Broncos. They have won 8 in a row. It's going back to that Thursday night fiasco against Peyton Manning. So it's been a long time since the Broncos have walked into Arrowhead and walked out with a dub, and they will not be changing that anytime soon. Probably not anytime in our lifetimes, to be honest with you. It's not a good matchup for them. They're coming at the Kings and they're missing every time, and that includes this one. So I have the Chiefs moving to a franchise tying record 9-0 to start the year with a Week 10 victory over the Denver Broncos.
I love that. I also love that you just switched it to a different winning streak. And I also, I mean, I just want to add, we spent a lot of time on the Broncos here, but they are fun to clown on. I mean, imagine how pissed the Chiefs must be at losing the streak. I know that that streak was probably not hugely consequential to the Chiefs because, who cares? We're
They
out
won the
here
Super
winning
Bowl.
Super Bowls.
Yeah,
Like this is not actually that important to us, but still, you have to think that Mahomes, who had never lost to the Broncos, he's got to be a little bit pissed that he dropped a game to the Broncos, right? Like
sure.
so,
And got their ass kicked 24
yeah,
9.
right, exactly. So, I think that'll be an easy dub. Got an interesting one the following week, week 11. The Chiefs are traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. And this is a regular season matchup that has been really tricky for the Chiefs. And really, since those first couple of games where the Chiefs won in the regular season and then obviously beat them in their first playoff matchup, the Bills have kind of dominated this matchup in the regular season. And there obviously was the game 2 years ago, which was non competitive. And then last year, obviously a one score game. The year before that, a one score game. And then I think 3 years ago was that they just absolutely wiped the floor with us. But this Bills team, they still have Josh Allen. He's amazing. He's the second best quarterback in the NFL. But man, they really have not done anything to help him. I can't believe that they traded out of the spot the Chiefs used to pick Xavier Worthy. I can't believe that they're going to try and make Keon Coleman like an outside wide receiver, which he never was in college, and he can't separate worth a damn. I can't believe that Khalil Shakir might be their wide receiver one. I don't know, but this Bills team is they've just lost so much talent. And this is a team that the Chiefs have broken. I think the Chiefs get things back on the right track in the regular season. I think should beat the Bills.
Let me take you back to September 16th, 2012. That was
Okay. Ooh, yeah.
that
Way
was a
back.
long time ago. That was before Travis Kelce was even in the NFL. That was the last time that the Chiefs lost in Buffalo. And it's been
Interesting.
4 games. It's been 4 games in Buffalo since. One in 13, one in 14, one in 20, and one in 24, where the Chiefs have walked in to Highmark Stadium. Highmark Stadium, right? Yeah,
I think
Highmark.
that's right. High
And
mark,
walked out.
watermark.
Yeah, and walked out with a win. And this matchup doesn't scare me at all. Now, if this were the 2021 Bills, they were grade A beefcake, right? They were as good as it gets. This team's birds quit, quite simply. I mean, you put it best. Like they've lost a lot of talent. Matt Milano's out for the year. They obviously traded away Diggs. They've got just a lot of things in flux in Buffalo, and I don't see them having a good year this year. Not
Yeah.
only do I not see them beating the Chiefs in this game, I don't think they make the playoffs, and I don't think I'm nearly alone in that prediction. So I've got the Chiefs winning this game on the road.
Yeah. Same dubs all around. Chiefs
That's
at
it.
Bills. Week
By
12,
the
the
way,
Chiefs are
that's a franchise record 10-0
10 in a
start
row.
for the Kansas
Sure,
City
10
Chiefs.
and 0 start. I love that for the Chiefs. And week 12, I know the streak is not ending for you here because the Chiefs are traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. I don't even have anything to say interesting about the Panthers.
They're not good.
They're not good, and the Chiefs are gonna. I mean, imagine trading your first round draft pick to draft a quarterback who's terrible, and then you're the worst team in the NFL, and you traded the number one pick in the draft, which they used to draft Caleb Williams, who's way better than the quarterback you just drafted last year. I mean, that's like an
Bryce Young sucks too.
all-time franchise sinking awful trade. I said I didn't have anything to say about them, but that's all I have to say.
It's almost like collusion. Like
yeah, it is. It is actually.
If I were a Bears division opponent, I'd be looking into those
Oh my
Panthers
God.
pretty heavily. I mean,
100%.
that was just an absolute catapult that they gave that entire Bears franchise with that trade. So yes, obviously the Chiefs are going to go into Carolina and win. I don't think anybody's surprised by that.
Now we have some rematches here. We've got back-to-back home games against our division rivals. Once again, the Las Vegas Raiders coming to town on Black Friday. Chiefs have a Friday game. And then they are taking on the Los Angeles Chargers again at home. And that one is actually in primetime on Sunday Night Football. So the spotlight will be on. The Chiefs, of course, defeated both of these teams per our predictions in the first matchup. I don't have anything different happening the second time around. I think we sweep the Raiders. I think we sweep the Chargers. I don't think there's any chance of the Chiefs dropping a game to the Raiders. The Chargers have Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert always looks like an absolute
Yeah.
superhero when he plays against the Chiefs, but there's just not enough talent around him. And I mean that on the offensive side of the ball, and I mean that on the defensive side of the ball. I just don't think they have the horses to be able to compete. And so I think the Chiefs are taking both of these rematches against their division opponents.
Look, our big picture story here for the Chiefs at this point in the season is a a 11-2 team on your version that's chugging their way towards a three-peat and a number one overall seed and all that fun stuff. And I don't see their focus lapsing there. And on my end, I mean, look, they're they're gonna be chasing perfection. They're gonna be chasing the perfect season. They're gonna be 12 and 0 and
This is when
13
you
and
start to
0
talk
and
about it, I feel like.
this is when you start to talk about it. This is
When the calendar gets to December and the Chiefs don't have a loss on the schedule, that's when we can.
and when you're looking at the remaining schedule, like let's say on Friday, on Black Friday, they're looking at their last six opponents, and it's the Raiders, Chargers, Browns, Texans, Steelers, and Broncos, which we're about to break down. But like that's that's within reach. That's then if you finish the job at that point. So either way, I think that these two home games are not surprise games. I think that they are always prepared for their division opponents, and I think that they take care of business against the Raiders, take care of business against the Chargers, and after 14 weeks and 13 games, you've got them 11-2. I've got them 13.
Now you mentioned the last four games, but let's go through each of these one by one.
Yes.
They go to Cleveland to play the Browns in week 15. I don't This is another one that I have as an absolute win. I mean, unless Deshaun Watson turns back into the quarterback he was 4 years ago, which seems prohibitively unlikely at this point, this team just doesn't scare me. Like we saw last year, what a team can do with the revolving door of below average quarterbacks. And the answer is they can get to the playoffs and get blown out in the first round by the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. This is also just not a defense that does anything interesting schematically. They have a lot of good players, and they obviously were a very good defense last year, but a lot of it is just, line up and beat your guy. And I don't think those kinds of defenses have ever had success against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, with the exception maybe of Tampa in the Super Bowl when the Chiefs were playing with, a backup offensive line. And they had the ability to just roll guys out there and rush with four. I think the Chiefs win this game pretty handily. I have them moving to 12-2.
I'm a firm non-believer Deshaun Watson. I think that he's washed. I think that he lost whatever magic he got by raping a bunch of young girls
Yeah, sure.
in
Karma's
massage
real.
parlors, and karma's definitely real. And I think that Cleveland is going to find out that they absolutely tanked their franchise by giving him $250 million guaranteed and signing him to that huge deal. And sometimes karma sucks. And this time, I definitely think that the Chiefs are going to roll into Cleveland and go 4-0 against the Browns in the Patrick Mahomes era against that team. They have not lost to them, whether Mahomes got knocked out in the playoffs and they still managed it, or whether they went into Cleveland and Travis Kelce went nuts, or whatever the case may be. They take care of this team, and they're going to continue to do so in Week 15.
Week 16, the last tough game on the schedule before the playoffs. They have to take on the Stroud Boys coming to Arrowhead in week 16 on a Saturday game. So we've got another sort of unusual start date and time. This is going to be a really interesting game. And I think the Texans have a real chance to be competitive for the number one seed in the NFL. Now, in your scenario, I mean, the Chiefs have probably mathematically, if they
Yeah.
haven't mathematically secured the number one seed at this point by being 14-0, they would absolutely seal it with a win in this game. There's simply no way that a team could be competing with them for the one seed if the Chiefs are at 15-0. I think the Chiefs, this to me feels like maybe the last chance for the Chiefs to drop a game on the schedule. I'm going to give the Chiefs a loss here.
Yep.
And I think it'll be a close game. I certainly think there's obviously the Chiefs can win this game. I think maybe the Texans catch them looking forward towards the playoffs a little bit, and the Chiefs take their last loss of the season? Question mark.
Mm. I don't think it would be crazy at all to suggest that the Texans come into Arrowhead and win this game. The Texans are young and hungry and talented, and as you said, will be fighting for top playoff positioning in the AFC. I mean, they're positioning themselves to just be the next in line. Everyone's the next in line. Everybody gets a shot at the champs. Step right up. give it your best. That's the Texans this year. They're a hell of a good team, and they have a quarterback on a rookie deal, and they have a good young head coach, and they have playmakers. They have everything you want. And so yeah, I don't think your prediction there is at all unreasonable. And I would guess that a lot of prognosticators that are picking games before the season starts, they're all circling this game for the Texans. They're all saying this is when the Texans show everybody who they are and cheat blah blah blah. Fuck it. The Chiefs are winning this game. They're gonna look at this game not as a game against the Texans, but as a game against history, as a game against 100 years of league history and of Tom Brady's legacy and of Patrick Mahomes' legacy and of Andy Reid's legacy and all these weights that are going to start to fall down on them for having an undefeated season and with a three-peat on the line. And I believe in this team to step up and take care of business in the weight of that pressure. And I think that they are going to get a home win. It's 4 days before Christmas in Arrowhead. They know what it felt like to send the crowd home with a loss on Christmas Day last Arrowhead. I do not see them capable of doing that 2 years in a row.
The Chiefs do play on Christmas Day again, which is a Wednesday this year. So they play Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday. This is the tough part of the schedule where they're playing 3 games in 10 days. They do, however, have the luxury of going to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. This is a team where, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in the NFL. He's been coaching now for almost 20 years, and that's an absolutely remarkable feat. But
it's coming to an end, buddy.
when you budget shop for the most important position in professional sports, let alone the most important position in the NFL, you get what you pay for. And when you go root around in the dumpster, what you're going to find is trash. And that's what the Steelers quarterback situation is. And that is what it inevitably will be in week 17. Chiefs are going to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think this is going to be Russell Wilson. I think by that point, they will be tired of his bullshit.
It might not even be Justin Fields, bro. It might be Mason Rudolph at this point.
Yes, it absolutely. Mason Rudolph on Christmas. Now, that would be a little unfair. I don't know if the Chiefs
that's like getting coal in your stocking with the Steel City.
That's that would be pretty crazy and pretty funny for everyone involved, except for Pittsburgh Steelers fans. So, yeah, I think at that point, why not? You're ripping them off, and you're walking into Pittsburgh. You're walking out of Pittsburgh with a 4th win in Patrick Mahomes' era. He is 3-0 against them in his career. He would move to 4-0, or maybe Carson Wentz moves to a victory over Pittsburgh there. But either way, that's a dub.
It'd be really fun if he did a little callback to his first start in Pittsburgh, his second NFL start as the starter, 3rd overall, and threw another 6 touchdowns in this game and tied the all-time record for most 6 touchdown games, which he's been one away from since his first year as a starter, and he hasn't done it since then. It would be fun to see him do it again against the Steelers, but it would be even more fun, Taylor, to see him do it in week 18, where the Chiefs close out the season in the Mile High City against the Denver Broncos. Now, here's where this gets interesting. We both know that we're picking a win here. I have the Chiefs winning or finishing the regular season 14-3. You have them finishing the regular season at a perfect 17-0. But would the Chiefs?
Yeah, I know.
Would they play their starters after clinching the number 1 seed to go for a 17-0 season when they also have a 3-peat on the line, right? Because this actually is an insane scenario if this comes to pass.
I know it.
Do you want and obviously a perfect season would result in literally, as we talked about with Randy, the greatest achievement in not even American professional sports. I'm going to say
in human history,
galactic sport, like literally in the history of the known universe. Okay. If you clinched a 3-peat in the NFL, which has never been done, with a 20-0 season, which has never been done. I really wonder where the calculus would land. I think pretty strongly that they would feel they want the 3-peat. more than they want anything. But like the perfect season is so elusive that it's not even something that you could talk about before the season, right? Like
Yeah,
the
right.
three-peat, they can be like, that's the goal. We want to be the first ones to
Yeah,
three-peat.
everyone says they want to win the Super Bowl, so like that's
No
no
one
different
can
for the
say
Chiefs.
like, yeah, we want to go
Yeah,
20-0 because that's
right,
insane and no one's
right.
ever done it. It's not even something that you can speak about. So like, I don't know, maybe
Here,
they do value
here's
that
the
more.
deal. Here's the deal. Number one, if you're going undefeated, you've got the first round bye.
Sure, yeah,
So
that's true.
already
That's true.
you're resting your starters the next week. Now, some people don't like the idea of resting the final game and then getting a bye and getting 2 full weeks without playing your starters, rest versus rust. We've all talked about that for a while. The other thing is that one of these does not prevent you from doing the other. So risking going for the 20-0 or the 17-0 season doesn't prevent you from winning the Super Bowl. Now, you're risking some injury. That's the calculus at play there, is that if they played their starters against Denver, Denver, of course, would be doing everything in their power to prevent all of this from happening. They would
Oh
want
my
to
God.
derail everything.
I
They
mean,
would,
Sean Payton might bring back Bounty Gate for this game.
he absolutely would. He absolutely would. And so if the Chiefs played their starters in this game and got anyone hurt of any significance, let alone Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or any of that, I mean, rightfully so, everyone would cook them. That would be, you had it. All you had to do was rest your starters, lose a meaningless game that nobody cares about, and then go on and win the actual ones that matter. So, like, from that perspective, I absolutely understand that they should not risk the injury. But there's the 2 weeks off thing that I know a lot of coaches aren't into. And there's history, and this team has history in mind. They are not a team that shies away from
Yeah,
that type of stuff.
that's true.
And against Denver, you don't think this team would want to go into Denver to clinch a perfect season? You don't think that would fire
I
them
mean,
up
that would
to
be
like
pretty
talk
incredible,
about a
especially the
perfect
year after
scenario?
they broke our
Yes,
streak. Yeah, no,
yes.
that would be quite the scenario.
But you're absolutely right in bringing up how hard of a decision it would be. It would not be a slam dunk. Everyone would question either way, no matter what you decided. Everyone would, because if they rest their starters and lose that game and they go 16-1, I mean, for the rest of time, everyone's going to say, "Oh my God!" Even if you won the Super Bowl, why didn't you play that last game? I mean,
right.
I would say
Yeah,
it. Everyone would say
that's
it.
true. No,
But it's
it's a
always
good
just
point.
going to be whatever doesn't happen. People are going to say that could have or would have happened. I mean, that's sports. That's how that goes. So like, if your team's banged up, if you've got a guy, a key contributor that could use a couple weeks off, maybe you rest him. But like, if you've got guys that are healthy and good to go, and if you've got guys that want to go out there and want to play and all that stuff, like just ask the guys. And if they want to go play the game, let them go play the game.
It's always possible that the Chiefs could just roll into Denver with their backups and win the
And
game
beat them.
too.
Absolutely.
And especially if you got the second stringers and you're
Carson
like,
Wentz versus Bo Nix.
Carson Wentz, you have the opportunity to clinch the 17th win in a 17-0 regular season. Sure.
You go down in
I
history.
mean, sure. And I mean, Andy's not going to take the week off. He's
Well,
going to
dude.
dial up a bespoke kick-ass playbook for Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz and Carson Steele. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? Like that's gonna be, they're gonna cut him up. And
That would
Sky
be good.
Moore.
Maybe they could get the Carson Wentz long snapper too, whose last name is Carson Wentz. Maybe
yes,
they could
Carson Dash Wentz.
pluck him out of college football and play him in this game as well. Let's spin forward here to the other divisions. And you obviously, just for the record, predict a 17-0 regular season. I had 14-3, which would also tie the franchise best mark for regular season wins with 14. Division winners, NFC North. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. I think this is a 2-team race between the Lions and the Packers, with the Bears probably making things interesting. Vikings, losing your starting quarterback and starting Sam Darnold, presumably for the entire season, kind of rules them out of this conversation for me. I'm going to take the Lions. I think it's probably a close race between the Lions and the Packers, but I'll take Detroit.
I agree that Detroit, I have them as well, but I think I probably believe enough in the Bears to have them second. It's close. I really do like the Packers too. That's a great 3-team race. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll be a really
to track all year long. I do think that the NFC North is going to be well represented in the playoffs with a couple wild card teams as well.
The NFC South, on the other hand, is a pit of despair. And if the
Sure.
NFC North is really fun with some fun quarterbacks, you've got Jared Goff, you've got Jordan Love, you've got Caleb Williams out there tearing it up. The NFC South has Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, Bryce
Bryce
Young,
Young,
and who's the fourth guy? Derek Carr. Sure.
Derek Carr.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just miserable.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the Falcons. I'm not incredibly confident about it, but I'll take the Fighting Kirk Cousinses. Who knows? Maybe the Fighting Penixes. That would be a good name. Fighting
that,
Penixes.
that would. Penai. Yeah, I'm gonna just kind of dart throw the Bucks there. I really
Sure.
have
Yeah,
no.
why not?
It's either the Bucks or the Falcons. I don't believe the Saints or the. I definitely know
I
the
mean, the
Panthers
Bucks
don't
won it
have
last
enough.
year, and
And
they
the
won a
Bucks won it
playoff
last
game.
year, and they've got
So
Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and I mean, they're all right. The Falcons could, if they do it, I'm not going to be surprised. They've got a quarterback that at least has won divisions before and stuff. But yeah, give me the Bucks.
the NFC East, this obviously is between the Cowboys and the Eagles. I think there's a decent chance that the Eagles implode. I mean, they already imploded. They literally had like one of the worst collapses in the history of the sport last
They
year.
did.
They went 1-6 down the stretch. I mean, Nick
They lost
Sirianni
their
is
first
not,
playoff game. Yeah,
yeah, Nick
brutal.
Sirianni is not that dude. And
Yep.
Nick Sirianni is still there. Now, they did bring in two professional coordinators in Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, but I think there's a chance this all goes off the rails. On the other hand, the Cowboys, really? I mean, Rico Dowdle is going to be their running back.
Right.
They haven't paid Dak. Like I'm kind of like if the other two teams in this division weren't so bad, I'd be like, sure, give me the Giants or the Commanders. But like, I think I have to realistically choose between Eagles and Cowboys. Give me the Eagles. I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, that was an interesting setup because I definitely thought you were setting Philly up to collapse there. And again, you said they certainly could, and no one will be surprised if they
They
do.
could, and they might, and they
I'm
probably
gonna
will.
I'm gonna go with the Commanders, and I think
What?
that
Okay, all
it's
right.
just because first of all, I do think that the Eagles are poised for a step backwards, and I think Dallas is kind of a shit show right now, and there's a chance Jaden Daniels is good enough to go out there and win some games in the NFC against basically nobody every year. I mean, I don't know, the NFC is kind of a kind of a just a dart throw in general. So I'm gonna take the Washington Commanders to come out of the NFC East.
There's always the surprise worst to first team anyway.
Yeah,
And actually,
right,
I don't even think the Commanders were worse. I think the Giants were the worst. But
right.
there's always a team that comes out of nowhere, and
It
who
looks
knows?
like that.
That's
Yeah,
that's a division where it certainly is possible. The NFC West, this is a really fun division. All
agreed.
these teams should be pretty competitive. I'm really like low key excited to watch the Cardinals. I don't think they have a chance to win, but I think this is a legitimate three-team race between the Niners, Rams, and Seahawks. And I kind of think I want
Hmm.
to. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take the Rams.
Rams. Yeah, I knew
I
you would.
I listen. The 49ers have brought all their guys back. They paid Ayuk. They paid Trent Williams. They're going to pay. They paid Christian McCaffrey last year. At a certain point, getting close and not getting over the finish line just has to wear on you. And I think
Yeah,
that entire organization has to be feeling the strain of getting to two Super Bowls in 5 years and two NFC championship games the other two seasons and not winning a championship. And I think that fatigue is just going to wear on that team. They still have the best roster, and I think you could make a case, especially in the regular season, for Kyle Shanahan being the best coach. I mean, it would be between him and McVay. Although Mike McDaniel is going to be a really interesting, or not Mike McDaniel, but Mike McDonald is going to be a really interesting addition to that cast of
sure.
coaches in the NFC West, especially given what he's done against the Shanahan tree offenses. But give me the Rams.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I wanted to pick the Rams. I like them. They're fun to root for. I like Sean McVay. There's a lot. I like Matt Stafford. I think maybe the Niners are on the final year of their get close and don't get
Yeah,
done.
that's fair.
I think there's one more year left in
I
it.
mean,
I think
after
this
this
is
year,
the year.
they have to pay Brock Purdy.
Brock
So
Purdy,
like, this
sure.
kind of makes sense. Like, if they don't do it this year,
This is the end of their window, and I do have them winning the division in a close race. As you said, I think the Seahawks are also game to make this thing interesting, and I mean it should be fun. It should come down to the wire, but give me the Niners there.
that brings us to the AFC. Let's talk about the AFC North first. Another team that, or another division that should be a legitimate three-team race. Assuming
You
Aaron
think
Rodgers is able. Assuming Aaron Rodgers is able.
North?
Oh, the AFC North. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, actually, I do
I think
think.
it's
I still think it's a three-team race because I was thinking of the AFC East, of course. But
sure
like, in my mind, you put the North first. East should always be first. So in my mind, I was
because it's
thinking we're doing the
right
first
to
division of the AFC. Left,
okay.
yeah, right to left.
I just go
However you want
north,
to do it,
south, east, west when I
geographic.
think about it.
You
A little
know,
plus, a little up, down, left, right.
which way is up?
Which way is up? Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's probably more like a two-team race. But
Yeah.
the thing about this division is it's always competitive, and none of the teams at the bottom of this division, with the exception of the Browns, are rarely incredibly bad. And I don't think the current state of the Browns roster is
Huge
capable of
exception of
being,
Browns.
yeah, huge exception of the Browns. But the recent Browns, the fancy Browns, have been a credible threat every year. I think the Ravens are going to win this division. I don't think I don't think the Bengals are going to make the playoffs this year. I'm just going to say it. I know we're not making predictions about that, but
Yeah, I
I
get it.
think that the Bengals are a franchise in turmoil, and given that, have to pick the Ravens to win the North.
I mean, I could have cut and pasted that and played it for my answer. I think that the Bengals are in trouble. I think the Ravens are going to win it. I guess the part that I would not have copied of that is that I don't think it's a three-team race. I don't think the Browns are going to be competitive, and I don't think the Steelers are either. I think that's going to come down to the health of both Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. That's going to decide the
Sure.
division.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if they
And
both
both
play the whole
injury
year,
prone,
yeah.
they're both guys that get hurt.
And if they both play the whole year, give me the Ravens. If one of them's hurt, obviously give me the other team. But I'll go with the
Sure.
Ravens by default.
Yeah, that makes sense. AFC South, fun division. This is like
Yes.
a division that really has gotten considerably more fun in the last 2 years. The Jags looked like they were the ascendant team, and then they had that amazing playoff comeback against the Chargers, and they fell short against the Chiefs, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump. But then last year, you have the emergence of CJ Stroud. We obviously have already mentioned the Texans, who the Chiefs do play in the regular season, how they look to be a team on the rise. The Colts almost made the playoffs last year with Gardner Minshew. And while I don't agree with Chris Ballard's entire philosophy of team building, I have to give him credit for finally taking the plunge and drafting a quarterback fourth overall. And it was Anthony Richardson, who is the most physically gifted quarterback prospect we've seen maybe ever. I mean, in terms of relative athletic score testing, he is the guy. He's 10 out of 10. He's the 100th percentile in terms of a QB athlete.
The Creed Humphrey of quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly. The Creed Humphrey of quarterbacks. That's what we say about
That's what they call him.
And that's what they call him. That's what they call him. That's what we call him. I mean, it's really between those three teams. And I think
you're leaving out the Titans.
Yeah. I mean, the Titans are, yeah. I literally could not remember the Titans, so I'm glad that you pulled them out of there. But no, the Titans are not. They're the only team in this division that doesn't interest me really at all. Even though they have a new coach, maybe Will Levis is kind of interesting, but I think I'm going with the stock pick, and I will take the Texans. I do think they'll have a very good year, but I think this division will be pretty competitive.
Yeah. I mean, I also agree with you that I think the Texans are going to win the division. As I was saying late in the Chiefs schedule, I think they're going to be right up there at the top of the AFC for playoff positioning and stuff. I think the Colts are a playoff team. I think they're a wild card team. They look like they've got a lot of fun young talent. You better not disagree with that as the owner of 9 Colts in our Always Sunny Dynasty League. So you're about as big of a Colts fan as I've ever met my whole life.
That's true.
So.
I am a huge Colts booster. I literally can start an entire starting lineup with the exception of the Superflex position of just Colts players.
That's because the Colts couldn't start a Superflex.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
if they had
That's
two quarterbacks,
if they had another quarterback, and in fact, last year I could have done that because I had Gardner Minshew, and then he went to Las Vegas to be the starting quarterback for the Raiders. Yeah, I am a huge Colts booster, so I think it'll be competitive. I do agree that they'll make the playoffs, but we're both taking the Texans there. That brings us to the AFC East, and then we're going to do the West again. This order does not make sense to me, but this is the
North, south,
division that
east,
I was
west.
going to say.
North, south, east, west doesn't make sense to
When
you.
you
That's the order of
say
cardinal
north, south,
directions.
east, west, that actually does make a lot of sense.
That's
But
the order.
traditionally, that is not the order that NFL cognoscenti
How
pundits
would
such
you
as
do it?
ourselves, they always
East,
go east to
north,
west.
south,
East, north,
west.
south, west is always the order that every football podcast gives their predictions in. But you're right when you say it like
North,
that, north,
south, east,
south, east,
west.
west. That
Never eat
does
soggy
make a
waffles, man. Oh,
that
wait.
is
That'd be north, east, southwest. Never eat soggy waffles. Wait,
well, that doesn't make sense at all. Northeast, southwest. No, that's not
that
good.
doesn't.
Anyway, we're at the AFC East. This is the division that I intended to say was a true three-team race with the Jets,
Yeah.
assuming Aaron Rodgers is healthy, the Bills, assuming that Josh Allen can continue to be superhuman, and the Dolphins, because we're only talking about the regular season and not what's going to happen to them when the calendar turns over to January and they have to go on the
Boom.
road and play in cold
Roasted.
temperatures. Boom, roasted. All three of these teams. I don't know, man. Give me the Jets, I
either.
guess.
Yeah,
Like
right.
I kind of don't really. I mean, the track record of quarterbacks over 40, and Rodgers is like right there. I think he's about to turn 40 if he hasn't already. It's not good. It's not good, with the exception of Tom Brady. It's actually quite bad. But the reports on him out of camp are that he looks healthy, he looks like Aaron Rodgers. He just doesn't seem like the guy that is going to be playing at a high level until he's 45, like Tom Brady, because Tom Brady's the only person that I can conceive of doing that. And
Yes.
let's be honest,
And
he made some
Mahomes.
sort of pact with Satan. Yeah, of course, Mahomes. Obviously, Mahomes is going to play until he's 50.
Yeah,
Brady couldn't do it. Pat's going to do it. I guess I'm going to take the Jets. I don't feel great about it. I feel like this is such a fragile division in that, like, a major injury to any one of these teams would change my mind. Maybe, I
Of
mean,
course.
not even just a quarterback, but like,
Of course.
if the Bills
Brees
lose
Hall
a
or something.
receiver, or Brees Hall, or Quinnen Williams, or I
Yeah.
mean the Dolphins, Tyreek or Jalen Waddle.
Anybody on the Dolphins, really.
Yeah,
Jesus.
right, exactly. Literally any player on the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel gets the flu and he's out for a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
whoever their actual offensive coordinator is calling plays for 2 weeks instead of Mike McDaniel. But I'll take the Jets.
Yeah, I have a hard time with this one. I said earlier that I don't believe the Bills will make the playoffs. I think they're going to really struggle. I think they're going to kind of go through it, so to speak. But that leaves me with the Jets and Dolphins. And so after I already eliminate the Bills from the conversation, now I'm looking at those two. Same kind of discussion you just had.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, right.
I don't know, man. I mean, the Jets are the Jets. The Jets are one of the most moribund franchises in professional
really
sports.
are.
I mean, they haven't won, anything in forever. And the
Super Bowl
Dolphins,
III.
yeah,
Joe
exactly.
Namath.
And
it.
I mean, that's the last time literally they did anything of note at all. And the Dolphins are still kind of like sneakily intriguing. They've still got some speed. They've still got a coach that
I mean, shoot, they added another super fast running back in the draft.
They did. They added that Jalen Wright kid. They've got a coach that I believe in his scheme. They've got what I would believe to be the most electrifying, playmaker in sports in Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's still unbelievable. He's still going to do stuff this year coming up that no one else can do. And they paid Tua. I don't know if I believe in Tua, but at least they've kind of solidified that position where they're not going out there and looking for a quarterback behind his back and doing all the bullshit they've done with him over the last couple of years. Like he's been told he's the guy. And I don't know. I don't think they'll be able to make any noise in the playoffs because they're the Dolphins and that's not what they do. They don't go to cold weather stadiums. They don't perform well when the season gets late, but I think they perform well enough early to walk out of this AFC East, but I mean, I don't feel great about it.
I don't either. Obviously, we're both taking the Chiefs in the AFC West. Don't be ridiculous.
Lock it in.
Awards picks really quickly. Do you have a pick? I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes is going to win the MVP.
Obviously.
And if either of our predictions come to pass, the Chiefs go 14-3, he's winning the MVP. If the Chiefs go 17-0, he's winning the MVP.
He's going to win the presidency if he goes 17-0.
Yeah. I mean, sure, let him run. Do you have a non-Mahomes pick for MVP?
I think the one I feel the most confident in is probably CJ Stroud. I think that that the Texans are the team that until they show me they can't do it. So the thing is, all these other teams have shown me that they cannot do it. All of
Yeah,
them.
it's a great
You
point.
know, they've all failed except for the Chiefs. And so the Texans are one of those teams that have not really. Yeah, obviously they lost the playoff game to the Ravens last year, but it was kind of, yeah, Stroud was a rookie and he had a great rookie year and the vibes were high and they got Stephon Diggs and blah blah blah. So like I do think that my version of the NFL in my head is probably one where CJ Stroud and the Texans go out there and they look like maybe the second or third best team in the NFL. They're going to be right up there. They're going to win a ton of games. He's going to throw a ton of touchdowns. So yeah, give me Stroud as the non-Mahomes MVP if I have to pick one.
I think it's a great choice. I mean, I think maybe this is the year for Josh Allen from a narrative standpoint. Like, if the Bills are good with
Yeah,
this supporting cast, it's
yeah,
kind of a
he would
20,
probably deserve it.
sure, a 2022 Mahomes situation where the Chiefs trade
Hmm.
Tyreek Hill and then they go out and have the best offense in the league and a great record, and they, maybe the Bills win the division again. I think getting, Diggs away from him, out of that picture, if he goes out and proves that he's the guy, that would maybe be my pick. And I do think that he's the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Mahomes. So that
Right.
would probably be my pick, but I think CJ Stroud is another good one. I don't think it's going to be Burrow. I would be stunned if the voters gave it to Lamar again. Like, I honestly can't fathom Lamar winning another MVP until he wins a Super Bowl, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're going
Yeah.
to be like, well, great, you had another great regular season, but like, we know you're not the most valuable player because we've seen you play in the
Correct.
playoffs, right? So,
Correct.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I mean, Joe Burrow, give me a break. Get out of here. That guy's not
No,
even really that good. So,
I'm not even
uh,
going to say his name.
yeah, exactly. Who do you think the Chiefs are going to face in the Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, really, I have two NFC teams that I feel pretty good about, and that's the matchup from the NFC Championship game last year. I think
Sure.
that the Lions and Niners both showed enough late in the year with the offensive explosiveness and the gutsy play calling and the just everything that they showed that I do think that if either of those teams makes it out of the NFC, um, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. And of those two, I'm just going to say that it's the Lions because that's a fun story and because the Niners are boring. And if it was Chiefs and Niners again, like everyone would be so mad. I don't even care if the Niners win.
Yeah,
Everyone would be so mad at that
right.
same Super Bowl matchup. So give me something a little spicy. Give me Chiefs Lions.
Chiefs Lions would be a great one. I can't really top that pick. And I think, like, I mean, that's got a shit ton of juice, like more
Yes.
juice than any possible Super Bowl matchup. The Chiefs going for a three-peat against a team that's never been to the
Never
Super
been to the
Bowl
Super Bowl. I know.
before. I mean, whew, that has a ton of narrative juice to it. I mean, that would be incredibly juicy. I just can't top that one. But
Okay.
I think if I had to pick non-Lions division, give me the Packers. If I had to pick a
Cool.
non-Lions division, I mean,
Super
I
Bowl
think
one rematch.
Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl one rematch. The Green Bay superstar quarterback versus Patrick Mahomes that we never got.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, maybe we'll see. I have had the Jets winning the AFC East. Maybe we finally get to see it in the AFC playoffs this year. I doubt it, but
Sure.
sure. I mean, it's impossible to top Chiefs versus Lions with the Chiefs going for a three-peat and the Lions playing in their first Super Bowl. That would be utterly insane. I'm just gonna copy you. Chiefs over Lions. That's how the 2024 season is gonna end. Can't wait for Thursday. We'll see you guys next week.